Hey everyone, this is Hunter from TEQ Customs. Today we are going to walk through the install process for a set of our 5th gen 4Runner headlights. So we're going to go ahead and get started. The first thing that you are going to need to remove is the front bumper cover, and you don't actually have to take it all the way off if you don't want to. So there are 3 bolts in each wheel well that hold the bumper and fender liner together, and then there are some clips back here under the grill that you'll need to take off, and then you can just pull the bumper cover out a little bit. If you do that, we just recommend putting like a towel or something between the edges of the bumper, so when it's pulled back it doesn't accidentally scratch your paint or anything like that. And then if you want to take the entire thing off, there's just, I think, 2 more bolts down there, and then you can remove the entire bumper cover, but that's not necessary unless you want to. So we'll go ahead and walk through a couple helpful tools for this job, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So some helpful tools for this job, going from left to right on the table. We have some 2 power tools. Definitely use these on the low torque setting. If you do use power tools, hand tools work fine, but if you have a gentle power tool, that can help speed up things for you a little bit. We've got 10 and 12 mil sockets and wrenches. We have a pair of pliers, a pair of wire strippers. We've got a ratchet if you need that with some more sockets. And then going over to what's included with the headlights. So the only thing that you will need is the RGB controller. And now is a good time. You can go ahead and scan this QR code on the controller and download the app on your phone. And you won't need that until later, but it's easier to just go ahead and do it now. And then we have an extension for one side of the halos, which we'll explain how to install in a little bit. And then the last thing is we just have a pair of these wire taps. And these are great wire taps because they do not require cutting or splicing, and they give a great connection. So one end of the wire just goes into the tap, and then you can clamp it down with pliers. And then this end of the wire tap just goes on the wire that you're tapping into. And like I said, it gives a good secure connection. These are super cheap, and I'll put the link to these in the description of the video. And I would definitely recommend using something like this. You can also use a crimper or something like that. We just recommend, since it's in the engine bay, doing something waterproof. But we're going to go ahead and now take the bumper cover off of the vehicle and then move on to the next step of the install. So now that you have the bumper pulled back a little bit, this is honestly as far as you need to go, and it'll just sit here on its own weight. There is 4 bolts to remove the headlight. So there is one in this bumper bracket down here. There is one under this plastic cover right here. There is a 3rd right here, and then there is a 4th just right down behind the grill. So once you remove those 4, the headlight will just come on out, and then you can just disconnect your stock headlight wiring, and that's all you need to do to take the headlight out. So once you get these out, you can go ahead and move on to the next step, which will be installing the RGB controller. So now that you've got the headlights out, the first thing you're going to want to do, and definitely do this before putting the headlights back in, because it's so much easier to get to these wires with the headlight out. You're going to want to tap in your RGB controller. So we tapped it in to this bulb, which has parking light and turn signal function. So the red wire off of our RGB controller is power, and that gets connected into the green wire on this bulb. The black wire is ground, and that gets connected into the white wire with the black stripe on this bulb. And then one of the yellow wires, it does not matter which one you connect into the yellow wire on the stock wiring. These are for the turn signals, but the controller has 2 leads and you can just swap which leads. So if you put this wire in and then connect a lead and the turn signal isn't working on the halo, you can go ahead and just swap the lead that you have on this side to the other side and bring that one over here, and just reverse it that way, and then you don't have to do any extensive testing to figure out which one is which. So we are going to go ahead and extend this wire over to the passenger side of the car, and we're just going to leave the controller, we're going to mount it back on this side. So we'll run this wire over to the passenger side, and on this side, the only difference is the turn signal wire is blue, not yellow. But this, on this side, this blue wire is the only wire that you're going to need to connect into. Everything else will run off of the power and ground on the other side of the vehicle. And the reason for connecting it into the parking lights is that just makes the halo selectable with your headlight stalk. So you'll be able to turn them on and off. It's basically just a built-in switch for the halos. If you want to, you can run the halos to, if you have a switch panel, like run it to your switch panel or something like that. But we typically just recommend doing the parking lights because everything's right there and it just makes it a little bit easier. So once you have all of that wiring ran, go ahead and you can just plug the headlight in without mounting it on the vehicle, just to test the halo. Once you turn the parking lights on, you should see the halo startup sequence go on, and then it goes to a solid color. And then go ahead and test the turn signal, make sure all of that works. And then once all of that's good, you can go ahead and we're going to connect the rest of these stock connectors back into the back of the headlight. Everything matches up, so your low beam plug is going to match up to your the low beam connector on the back of the headlight. Your high beam is going to match up to the high beam on the back of the headlight, and then your parking light and turn signal connectors are going to match up to the stock turn signal and parking light bulbs. So when you're doing that, it's just important to note, mainly for the high beam connector, you want to make sure you have power to power and ground to ground. You can connect the high beam in backwards, actually. So you want to make sure you have the red wire coming off the back of the headlight for the high beam connector connected to the green side of this plug, and then you want the ground connected to the white wire with the black stripe, and the ground coming off the back of the headlight is a black wire. So if you plug everything in and test it and your high beam isn't working, you probably have this connector connected in backwards with reverse polarity, and you can just flip it 180 degrees and plug it in correctly. All right, now that you've got your new headlights on, you've tested everything is working like it should, you go ahead and put the front bumper on. You just obviously reverse the process you took to take the front bumper off. You just have the 3 bolts over here, the bolts and the clips in the middle, and then everything just goes right back on. And then the last thing that you're going to need to do is just adjust the beam height of the headlights. So the best way to do this is to back up about 20 feet from a wall and then measure from the ground to the center of the projectors in the headlights, just about halfway up the headlights. And on the wall, you want to adjust the beam pattern about an inch or 2 lower than what you measured in the center of the headlight. If you're lifted really high or have no lift, you can adjust it a little bit in either direction. And you can always go back and fine-tune the adjustment later if you adjust it and then notice it's a little bit too high or a little bit too low for your liking. The adjustment screw is located straight back here behind the headlight. It's on near the top of the headlight, and turning this screw to the right is going to raise the beam pattern up, turning the screw to the left is going to lower the beam pattern. So go ahead and back up against the wall, get the beam pattern exactly where you think you need it. You can fine tune a little bit after that, but then that is the last step that you're going to need to do to finish your headlight installs. Once you're finished installing, take some pictures, share them with us on social media. We are at TEQ Customs on Instagram and Facebook. You can also email them to us at teqcustoms@gmail.com, and we would love to feature you on our social media. If you have any questions, comments, concerns with your headlights or anything else, feel free to reach out to us. Once again, our email is teqcustoms@gmail.com, and our shop phone number is 919-903-4555. We really appreciate your support, and thank you for watching.